Ooh, look how bad those brakes are worn in. All the way to the metal. King Ranch, Ford F-150 2012. Doing the brakes and rotors. And a little peculiar thing, under the seat here, there's a tray that pulls out. And under that is a box that slid in that way under the other seat. And sorry, these are just spare seats I'm taking for parts to sell. Anyway, so these little screw jobs are down in there holding this thing in place, so you can't slide it out until you release them. And see, they kind of poke in loosely in this area here, so it doesn't have to be exact. But this is the kit for your scissor jack, and I'm just using it to get the bar out. What's it called? The little lug nut wrench, shall we say. So it's a strange setup in here, but it has to slide through. Now, first step on this one, and the story behind this, well, the first step is finding this hole and carefully removing this guy. Special King Ranch design. And these aren't in the best shape, but there's some cleaning. Help them out. On the other side, I already took the other one off, and I think the caliper was stuck because the brake wore all the way through to the metal backup portion of the brake pad and mounting portion, and so that one's toast over there. Because I wouldn't want to put on my new rotor and my new pads with a broken stuck caliper, because then I could just warp my new rotor and pads. That would be horrible. Okay, it costs a lot of money. Even at Advance Auto, you can't use the 25% off discount, so I got them at Ford. It was like $110 for rotors and $85 for pads. I don't know why they're so expensive, but if you get them on Rock Auto or something, I'm sure they'd be cheap. But I have to do this today to drive this truck to Florida tomorrow. So the hardest part usually is getting these babies off, especially with this annoying angle wrench. And one trick to getting these off usually is kicking on here to give it a little impact force with, if you got nice sturdy shoes. Let's see how the end likes to fall off. These babies are so stuck on here that what I'm gonna do is take the end off my jack here and use that as a lever, like a pipe, to put on the end of that guy to get them off. So, excuse me while I finagle that little button out of there. Ran out of video space while I was taking the wheel off, so I didn't get to show you, but these buggers were a pain in the butt. I had to use the extension on the jack to leverage that lug nut wrench. And now I'm taking off these 13mm nuts that hold in this portion of the caliper. Now I suppose you could just take off the larger nuts in here, but I like to do it this way just so I can grease everything up, keep it all legit. Check it out. And it just makes this whole thing less heavy when I need to take it off. So these guys, 13mm socket size, and then this should just pull off. Sometimes needs a little help. Let's see what you can do here. I'm gonna put this right in here. Give it a little help. This is very rusty and crusty and stuck together. Actually, in here is a better spot. There. Down here. Can't get it in there anymore. Come on! I'll let you know when I get this off. So I got this, pried this thing off and rested it up here so that the brake line's not getting bent too bad. Quite a bit of rust on here. A little grease around this area, which is interesting. Hopefully there's not a brake leak there. Usually the grease should be on here. Anyway, so these, looking from here, you can tell there's a ton of brake life left on those, which is fine, but they are kind of rusted and stuck in there. Now when I'm looking here, I can see this is all corroded and messed up, and down here, so I'm not getting the full braking surface. If anything, I'm getting one good, nice, smooth surface here, and the rest is kind of crap. So I'm gonna replace this rotor, and the next step would be taking these pads off. So I'm just gonna pry at them to get them out of here. Try not to destroy them, because I certainly had a rough go of it with these guys, being all the way up here in Florida without my proper tools. And these rusty brake bolts and things. Had to get calipers just because these guys are just not safe. They're just too rusted and gone. And I had to buy a breaker bar and find it 21mm socket to get these rusted on caliper bolts out. And then for the other side, I had to whack that rotor really good with the sledgehammer, tapping it in between here, round and round and round, and then from the back and turning it till it finally popped off. Oh man, it was hard work. But once I get these pretty new brakes on, it'll be awesome. So I'm gonna be taking off this nut here, and brake fluid is gonna start spraying out, and I need to get this with a new copper washer, banjo nut or whatever that whole thing is, back on to the new one ASAP before I lose a lot of fluid. So that'll be fun, and I won't be doing the camera for that, no way. So you know what the problem was with this F-150 after all that time and all that work I did on the brakes, putting new calipers, putting new pads, buying it all in a rush, spending $500 on all the new parts. Calipers, rotors, pads, and what it was a clogged flex line. The brake line that goes from the caliper up to the hard brake line, the flexible one, because your suspension moves, has to flex. There was a mount for that line that kind of held it with a piece of metal like that, and the tube went through. And then there was a bolt hole to the mount, right? And as the years went on, that metal part started to rust and expand inwards and squeeze that flex line until it finally pinched it and caused it to be clogged. So what happened was you push on the brakes, and it was like a one-way valve. The fluid could push down into the caliper and close the brakes, squeeze, but then the clog would prevent the fluid from releasing and going back up the line, the pressure, and so the pads would never release. The pistons couldn't go back. So that was the problem. Pretty simple fix, just to replace those two flex lines, and everything is good. But definitely don't always assume it's your calipers. But these ones that were on here were super rusty anyways, and so now I have nice fresh ones, and I'm in Florida now with the truck registered here, and so no more rust. Yay! A little bit from the salt air, but we're not that close to get that breezy salt air as much, so everything should be fine.